Welcome to the Agent of Wealth podcast with Marc Bautis from Bautis Financial. In this podcast, Marc helps guide you towards financial freedom, ensure you never run out of money, and create a balance in life that prioritizes what is most important to you. Join us for this journey as Marc draws from years of expertise and guest experts to solve the multiple wealth building challenges involved in your financial life.
Good morning and welcome to the Agent of Wealth podcast. On today's show, we have Kelli Lewis, the founder and owner of Kelli Works Bookkeeping. Kelli, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so how'd you get started in bookkeeping?
Well, I gained my experience working with a logistics company back in 2004. So they were freight forwarding. I was a junior bookkeeper there. From then, the vice president of that company went and opened up his own and brought me on, and I was the controller, so I handled everything from accounting to other managerial types of things and HR and all that fun stuff.
And I'm sure being in bookkeeping, numbers is something that you like.
Absolutely. I see the numbers and they speak to me.
All right, so we're approaching or right in the middle of tax season. Depending upon how your business is structured, you're probably either having to file by March 15th, April 15th, or if you get some kind of extension. But what should small businesses or businesses in general be doing now to prepare so that they can file on time when they need to?
I think it's really important to look at the previous year and just make sure that everything makes sense, that things are categorized properly. If you made any large purchases of equipment, that you're not just kind of lumping it into office supplies if it should be depreciated as an asset. So really kind of just fine-tuning things. That's if you already have a set of existing books, and if you don't, definitely contacting a professional to recreate the tax year so that you have all of your financials, your debits, your credits, and everything lined up properly.
So I know you mentioned categorizing things, and it's probably akin to how I like to do it on the personal side, where you want to see where money's going. And on the personal side, it's important because you don't have an infinite source of money, and you want to make sure it's going to the things that are important to you and that are funding your goals. On the business side, it's probably that's important as well, but also for tax purposes, they do have to categorize expenses, correct, on where their money's going? Oh,
yes, absolutely. And even certain categories like meals and entertainment, and I believe it was 2018, they actually removed the entertainment category. So entertainment is no longer deductible. Or a few years ago it was, travel. Meals is only 50% deductible. So, things really need to be categorized properly so you're avoiding any hiccups. God forbid there ever be an audit or anything.
And are there standard categories that a business has to follow, or can they kind of make up their own categories?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. Because, you have your standard kind of chart of accounts, and any accounting software that you're using typically will come with kind of a default generic setting. And from there, you want to create categories that are geared towards your business and measuring expenses. You don't want to create categories for ridiculous things. I've seen businesses where they have overkill on their chart of accounts. And that's not beneficial to...
Actually, can you just explain what a chart of accounts is?
Okay. So chart of accounts is ultimately, you have your bank accounts, your liabilities. So liabilities are any loans that you may have or any debt that's outstanding. Then you have your assets, that's whether it's materials or any loans that if anyone owes your business money, your accounts receivable, accounts payable, payable is who you owe, receivable is who owes you. And then you have like your income categories, which is important because, if you're a brick and mortar and you're selling certain pieces of furniture, we'll categorize that as furniture sales. But then if you're also selling, fabric or upholstery, you want to categorize that as fabric sales so that when you review your financials, how much you're making in each category. And then you also have your cost of goods sold. So cost of goods is ultimately what it costs to sell your merchandise. So, you'll need to initially purchase the furniture so that you can ultimately sell it. So that's the example there. And then you have your expense category, which is ultimately all of your overhead. And any dollar, penny that is spent through the business should be properly categorized. We shouldn't be lumping things in reconciliation, discrepancy, or, miscellaneous. If it was spent, there should be a reason why, and it should be properly broken down. So the expenses is where you don't want to go overkill on the type of detail, because it'll be really hard to just measure, any financial tracking, because it's too much.
So you can look at the chart of accounts as almost as like a financial dashboard or the health of the company's finances?
Absolutely. What's being spent, what's being made, where, and properly categorizing it.
And so let's say a company doesn't use a professional help. Are they creating all this in spreadsheets, or how would they do this?
Yeah, so I see a lot of folks in Excel. You may even hear a business owner say, "Oh, I know my expenses. I track them in Excel." Because you're tracking your overhead, but there's incidentals, and that's the reason why you really need to have a bank reconciliation so that everything is accounted for, even if it's a one-off. But yes, you'll see they're tracking them in Excel, and also QuickBooks Online. It's really we all know QuickBooks. They're like the guru of accounting. The QuickBooks Online version is great. It's really user-friendly, and it really empowers an entrepreneur to kind of look at their financials and track it and enter it, which is great. But again, really having the expertise and knowing how to categorize things properly, because QuickBooks will try to automate things, and through that automation, you'll see where things are improperly categorized, or there might be some duplicates or things like that. So it is ideal that if an entrepreneur or solopreneur is running QuickBooks Online on their own, that at a minimum they have a professional going in once per quarter to just balance checks and balances.
Yeah, I would imagine most business owners don't set out with the goal in mind to start tracking their printer, toner, paper that they purchased, and all types of things. So you mentioned, I guess, a couple of things on the, how the engagement or how you work. I imagine there are some people that come to you now and say, I haven't done anything for, let's say, last year, 2019. I'm going to have to file my tax return soon. What do I do? And in that case, what do you recreate the year for them?
Yes, absolutely. So, my first question will be, where are you banking? How many credit cards are there? How many checking accounts are there? And, depending on which bank they're with, that will, help to gauge the type of project, whether it'll be a little more automated or, more manual. But yeah, we can recreate the year with just bank statements. And I can even go back as far as 7 years, through the bank records, unless, they have, copies of their statements if they're older. But ultimately, that's all we need.
Will some banks allow you to automate or pull in the transactions, or I guess the other option is you have to basically just look at bank statements and manually handle or enter in each transaction? Is that the two main ways of doing it?
Yes. So when you're with some of the bigger banks, there is an import feature where you can sync the information in through QuickBooks, which nowadays a lot of anything that pretty much has to do with financials, they're kind of finding a way to get into QuickBooks since they're just mainstream.
Mm-hmm. What else does a business owner need to look at now as they're approaching tax time that they would have to do or get done?
I think it's also important to just, make sure that, we've kind of passed the deadlines, but, 1099s and W-2s, you have to give those out. The January 1st, 31st is the deadline for those. And then just again, also kind of sitting down with your tax preparer and, just making sure that you're on track for everything and that, you've gotten all of your interest statements from, any of your financial vehicles, and pretty much just making sure that your paperwork is in order. And I think, most people want to file by the due date, but I think that's why extensions are there, not for someone to kind of beat themselves up or get overwhelmed. Just find someone, hire them, and, they can kind of take that burden off of you. And, October and September are the next filing periods. So.
Now, I think we're talking in this case about someone who just waits until the last minute to do it. But I think in pretty much everything, the more you plan ahead is better. So what throughout the year could they be doing, or what could you be helping them out with in terms of that, that organization?
Right. So typically my clients will retain me on a monthly retainer. And so on a monthly basis, we'll provide financials, your profit and loss, your balance sheet, if there are any, bills that need to be paid, or, any income that you need tracked, or invoices that you need generated. Each business is kind of different and exactly what they need. So it's really an a la carte service that's kind of catered to the business, but at bare minimal, we're doing a reconciliation of all of the, financial tools. So whether it's the checking, money markets, even if, I have subcontractors and, they're using petty cash, so we'll reconcile the petty cash, credit cards, the American Express card, whatever way the business is spending money and any way the business is generating money, even PayPal and some of the online stores, Shopify, reconciliations, all that. So just kind of getting into the nitty gritty and making sure that everything's balancing out. So we do that on a monthly basis. And we also, for some other clients who might not be as busy or have that much going on, we can take care of that on a quarterly basis.
Okay. So every quarter or every month, depending upon how they engage with you, they're getting some reports that they can look at and see the trends, the health of their business, and if it's going in the right direction that they want. I think the one you mentioned, which is probably my favorite report for business owners, that profit and loss reports. They can see what's coming in, where is it going, or different expenses trending up. What does it cost to provide the product or service that they make or sell? But also you mentioned one thing, you mentioned bill pay. How does that work? Are you paying the bills on behalf of the company?
Yes. So just depending on the logistics and the way that the entity is set up, there are a few different avenues. We can pay bills, with regular old school checks, mm-hmm. or through the bank. We can take advantage of their bill pay system, or using Bill.com. Bill.com is pretty cool because there's different levels of approval and certain limits on how much can be paid and who's approving what, who's entering it. But yes, definitely taking care of the bill pay.
Yeah, I can see that definitely has like a time saving for the business owner, because, or whoever in the business is doing it usually. Because depending upon how big the business is, what they're spending money on, it can be overwhelming. You just, every day a new bill is due, a new bill is coming in, and keeping track of what's paid, what's not paid, what's outstanding, when does it have to get paid is probably pretty time consuming to do.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's really where my passion is kind of coming in and putting procedures in place to streamline those kind of things. Because even in large businesses, you will be so surprised to see, the bill approval process. X might receive the mail, might sit on X's desk for, so many
Sure.
days. And then, they have to get it to this one to sign and initial and stamp it and then scan it. And I said, well, what if we don't stamp it? What if we just
Right.
scan it? What if we do it this way? So, that I enjoy working with companies and really kind of helping them see, we can get from A to Z, in a quicker way. We might not have to go through all of those avenues. And in some smaller companies where cash flow might be an issue, we'd set it up so we have like a weekly or bi-weekly approval process where it's, okay, cash is a little tight. Let's hold off on sending this one out, but you can pay these.
So sort of timing of the bills is important as well.
Yeah.
Sure. So one thing, I work with a lot of small business owners, and one thing I see is that mixing of the business side and their personal stuff. Do you see that as well on people
all
you
the
work
time?
Yeah.
No.
So what do you do or how do you recommend people? What does the business owner do to kind of rectify that?
I think it's way more important than we think or that even we know, because I mean the reason why someone will establish a corporation or an LLC is to kind of create that corporate veil, to protect themselves personally. If there's any liabilities against the company. And in the event that, anything goes wrong, they're breaking the corporate veil by using the card personally. So, even if we just move away from taxes and deductible expenses and et cetera, by using, your business card, to buy a baby shower gift for your niece, is, you're risking way too much. It's really not worth it. So what I encourage my clients to do is, I always say, bank at the same bank. Sometimes you'll see they have a personal account here, the business account's there. I say, bank at the same bank. While you're standing on the checkout line, if you don't have the money in your personal account, make a transfer, because that's cleaner. So when I see the transfer leaving the business account to the personal, it's a simple members draw. There's really no question about it. Transfer it into your personal account and then use your personal card to actually make the purchase. That leaves for a cleaner set of books, and you're kind of legally still keeping things intact.
Yeah.
But when you're an entrepreneur, as we all know, it's kind of all commingled. We sleep, eat, and breathe this.
Yeah.
So when you're out and you're swiping, you're like, okay, it doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. I'm here doing this for the business anyway. It's really important, and especially to see the growth of your business and trends and things like that, to really keep it separate. So
yeah. So I guess that that keeping it separate, it's obviously the legal benefit of doing it. Then there's the being able to look at your business and determine what's going on with it, a true sense of what's going on. But then there's also, when it comes time to filing taxes, it's just much easier whether they use you or whether they do it themselves to be able to know, yes, this is really something that's deductible, or no, this is something that's really a personal expense.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important to be able to gauge your business, and a lot of this is learning curves. I mean, entrepreneurs, they get into business because they found a passion about something. Like they love what it is that they do, and they should continue to do that. And just hire a professional that will kind of guide them and show them the way. So there's no judgment. Sometimes things happen, mistakes are made, and it's just about kind of trying to do your best and clean it up and just move forward. And don't kind of overload yourself trying to be an expert in every area, because whatever they're doing to generate the income for their business, I can't do that. But I'm an expert in my area.
Yeah, so. And it comes down to organization and structure, like you mentioned earlier. I promote it, on the personal side with someone's finances, and I always will say treat your personal side as if it was a business, but you got to make sure your business is treated well also. A couple episodes ago, we had Maria Diaz, an organizer, on. Same thing on her side. She, it all comes down to organization. She talked about organizing your house and just the benefits of it outside of having your financials organized, where it's less stress. You can think freer, so you better, you'd be a better business owner and be able to function better, focus on the right things. So the organization is definitely important. On that topic, what's do you have any tips for the person who hands you a box of receipts or who doesn't have any receipts? How can they, because I know that the IRS requires them over a certain amount of money. How does someone manage that over the year?
Right. So I think that now in this day and age with, these smartphones that can scan and take a picture of anything, there's also something called a Neat scanner, which I'm a fan of. It's a desktop scanner. But the inserts, they have the regular 8x10 or 8x11 size paper inserts, but they also have that thin little small gas station receipt insert where it can feed through there without jamming. So that's if, you need to do that. But again, I'd say baby steps, don't stress yourself out about keeping every single receipt. Let's keep receipts for larger purchases. You're buying a printer, You bought a new monitor, you have some clients in from out of town and you guys go out to eat and the bill's $700. Those are the things that you want to keep because through an audit, they'll kind of sporadically pick things out. So it's not that they'll want to see every single thing. But yeah, I guess it's just good practices. But what I would say is no cash, because cash, it's hard to recreate a set of books with cash. I've dealt with landscapers before, and they're buying the mulch, they're making the purchases, they're paying some of their guys on a cash basis. I can't even begin to kind of recreate that sort of swipe.
Yeah. So I can definitely see the importance of that for tracking purposes. One of the things you mentioned earlier was preparing these reports and also working with the tax preparer or the CPA that's preparing them. How and I always promote that too. Have that kind of, you want all your professionals talking together. You want everyone on the same page. How do you work with someone's tax preparer?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, CPAs and tax preparers, they're great business partners for me. It's a really great synergy because typically they'll have a client who they've been working with for years that comes to them with the box of receipts or the statements, and their recommendation is you need a bookkeeper. You need someone to kind of get all of this in order, and that's the role that I'll be in that situation. So it's pretty much, I would prepare all the financials, send them over to the accountant, and the accountant will be super happy. And then we'll kind of go back and forth on, discussing this liability and this credit. I'll make any, ending and opening journal entries. It's ideal that, your books should match your tax return. So that's important. A lot of CPAs, if they run a tight ship, they'll request that opening and ending journal entries go through to balance everything out. And then, I may also have a client who doesn't have a tax preparer. So at that point, I pretty much pair them with someone that I know. I know a lot of different tax preparers and CPAs and, different synergies. Some may specialize in restaurants, some may specialize in, individuals who have a tax debt. So that might be a better synergy of working together. So yeah, any other accounting or financial professional is someone I would love to know.
And I'm sure we were even talking about this before, about one of the myths of working with a bookkeeper is the affordability of it. I would imagine that having you prepare all these documents, that makes it nice and cookie cutter for the tax preparer or the CPA to prepare it. It's more affordable than if the CPA actually prepared it themselves.
Right. And you'll see a lot of times the CPA doesn't want to do it. They don't want to bill you all of those hours in recreating the documents. Unless they have a bookkeeping department within the firm. But I had a client, their tax preparer charged them close to $6,000, because they had to redo everything, multiple businesses. And then the following year, the bill was like $1,500 for, the return, the Schedule C, because ultimately they were all LLCs that carried over. So, the cost it's way more affordable than you think. Like I said, I like to set my clients up on monthly retainers that we're all kind of comfortable with. So it's like a gym membership, comes out. We don't have to give second thought to it. I'm not necessarily one for the hourly billing. However, I may have individuals who, request that, and we can work accordingly. But, I'm always working. Kelli works. So I find it a little more difficult to track the minutes every time someone calls or texts.
Yeah, so, it's not the most convenient thing to do.
Not at all. Save that for the attorneys.
So we're about wrapping up. Anything else any tips or anything else you think business owners should know about keeping accurate books or preparing for tax season?
I'd just say, since we're still at the top of the year, let this just be the year where you kind of step out and reach out. If it's not to myself, it can also be another accounting professional. But, really kind of get that that burden lifted from you this year, I think you'll see that, not only taxes will be streamlined, but even throughout the year, I think you'll have a better handle on what you're doing, how your business is going. And, if there needs to be any changes made, if you see that, okay, I can cut back in this area, maybe hire someone new. So I think the one takeaway I would say is really reach out to someone and get your books in order. Like your business deserves that.
Yeah, no, it's important. It should be focusing on the things that they can add value to, which is their business, not maintaining their books and records of the business. So what's the best way that someone can reach out to you?
So my website is kelliworks.com, KELLIWORKS.com. Email is info@kelliworks, located at 2000 Morris Avenue in Union, New Jersey, 07083, and the office number is 201-308-3128. And then, on the website, there's hashtags and links to Facebooks and Instas and LinkedIn and all that stuff. So.
Great. And thank you for being on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a great day.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Agent of Wealth podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Bautis Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial planning and investment advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investments and financial planning.